Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Extra Shift. I'm Chris, here as always with Brendan. How are we doing?
Good. How's it going?
Oh, yeah, the season started.
Yeah, no, it's shocking.
It came out of nowhere. We talked about this before, but it came out of nowhere. It's going.
It's interesting.
And it's running, and it's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, almost every team now at this point, maybe by the end of today, will have played 10 games, which is, I think, really the minimum to have any kind of hot take for that is kind of vaguely, important in any way. But look, there's, as always, some chaos at the start of the season, and we'll talk about that. But it is episode 225. Welcome everyone to that. I don't know if there's any particular notable 25s that stood out to you.
No, I mean we sort of moved in the last episode to like current numbers and looking at who for this season do we really like. But
yeah, it's not a popular number. That's
Jonas Bredin is really carrying the torch.
Jordan Kyra is on there.
What a showdown that'd be.
Yeah, Jacob Markstrom, but look, it's certainly not a number that people are clamoring to wear.
It's not a number that you have people really fighting desperately over. I mean, Nolan Foote had it for 4 years and gave it up.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's Elias Pettersson on the Canucks, but the other Elias Pettersson on the Canucks.
Yeah, it's Elias Pettersson brackets. No. Yeah, not that one. That's how I like to refer to him.
I think actually they are referring to him slightly differently on like box scores or whatever. So that
LEP,
it's
like LEP.
Like they're listing like the middle name or something like that. I'll see if I can find it. But
well, that's like in the WSL and the Women's Super League in the UK for football, where there's obviously Australia's Sam Kerr, and then as a Liverpool supporter, Liverpool have a player called Sam Kerr, and it's like no, not that one.
No, that one, the other one.
And one of the benefits of the currently much maligned Football Manager 26 that's just been released is that you can play as the Women's League for the first time ever. So my aim as a Liverpool manager is to grab the Infinity Stones of Sam Kerr's and all of them on the one roster. So Kerr to Kerr. That's what I'm after. That's my aim.
Nice.
But yeah, that's what they're doing with Pettersson. Gathering all of them.
It is annoying though when you're watching box scores when like you're like me and have Elias Pettersson the forward in a couple of leagues, and then you see like a point come up for Elias Pettersson, and you're like wondering why your score didn't change, and then you realize it's the other one.
Yeah, that's been tricky with a few bits and pieces where I've in fantasy leagues. And
the Sebastian Aho problem as well.
And maybe a bit later when we get to the hot takes, I think we might need to also recount the brutal battle that we had the other day in one of our fantasy leagues where literally the last part of the game cost me almost an upset.
It was a close one. That was a close one.
It was really tight. Anyway, let's get into the what's going on in the actual league. We have a trade to announce. I think you're going to want to hear it or not. It's up to you. Vancouver Canucks acquire Lucas Reichel from the Chicago Blackhawks for a 2027 fourth round pick, which is certainly a thing.
Yeah, look, I think Reichel's an interesting, player. Obviously, still young. 23 currently, was drafted 17th overall in 2020. Has put up some points at the NHL level. Not. I think that there's a difficult thing with players that are drafted in the first round where both they also get like extra chances even when they're not necessarily earning them in the same way that if you were a player in the AHL who was drafted in like the third round or something like that, you kind of earn your way up and you tend to stay there based on your performance. Whereas I think first round players kind of get a little bit more rope in that it's like, oh well, we spent all this draft capital on them or whatever, we've got to give them as many chances as humanly possible. I don't know whether Reichel will turn into maybe kind of what they expected him to turn into somewhere else eventually through his career, or if he'll just kind of be, just an NHL player, bottom six guy or whatever, and that'll be fine if it wasn't for the kind of expectation. But apparently he requested a trade out of Chicago. I think that maybe he wasn't getting the opportunity he felt like he needed to get. So we'll see whether or not he gets a better situation in Vancouver.
I feel like that's an unusual one for me, because just like the move Blackhawks out of the Blackhawks and onto the Canucks, especially as the Blackhawks are sort of feeling like they're trying to take next steps, is an interesting one. The only thing I can think of is that he possibly looked at the two divisions and thought that maybe Vancouver's pathway to success is a little bit easier in the Pacific than, say, Chicago trying to get through, what is a very cluttered Central. So possibly looked at that. I mean, game time is definitely going to be a driving force there, but I don't feel like his game time is going to significantly go up.
No, I don't. Probably
like
not. But there's probably an aspect of, there's a bunch of young guys in Chicago that are kind of vying for deployment, on the power play and on, certain, kind of roles and so forth. There's a lot more kind of competition in young players that have kind of matured better in the last few years since being drafted by Chicago. So maybe it's just things aren't working out for me here. It's not trending in the right direction. Maybe I'll get a better chance elsewhere. I don't know whether he chose specifically to go to Vancouver. Probably not. I think it's probably more a matter of he's just like, well, put me somewhere else.
And that was where he ended up. I mean, it's certainly interesting. And again, when we'll get into obviously how the divisions have started, but it's sort of an interesting move in that respect too. Let's get into some of the signings. Logan Cooley does sign in Utah, 8 years for $10 million AAV. Solid deal. I think that's pretty Cooley. Good. I think Utah's got a decent deal there on Cooley. And look, they're trying to obviously build something there, and so far the start's been positive for them. So who would have thought that having all of the prime assets of the Coyotes that they'd gathered and all that young talent they'd worked on together, who knew that when you give them a little bit more time, they might actually turn into something.
I mean, I've got a bit of a soft spot for Logan. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Logan Cooley after the very brief period of time where we got those couple of games in Melbourne with the Coyotes, and he had the nice highlight reel goal during one of those games.
Logan Cooley really sort of was the one player who did something of note in those games.
Yeah, kind of put himself on the map for Australian fans, I think, in an interesting way. But look, it looks like he's coming together as a player and will be an important piece for Utah going forward. So so I think that's a good deal for both parties.
Marty Netchus gets his extension in Colorado, 8 years, $11.5 million.
Yeah, this one just came down today. So
and just having a look through it, it's a no move with a modified no trade at the end. So yeah, look, it's not bad. I think it's probably fair value for Netchus. I think that as we said with Colorado when they were making that initial trade, and then it was like, okay, well, what are they going to get back that's going to sort of be of value? And that was probably the best they were going to be able to do there. And I think he's definitely got a role to play in Colorado moving forward. So I think that's probably a good deal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and obviously, as we know, the cap situation going up in the next few years, a lot of these will look a much more reasonable. I think there's a little bit of sticker shock still for some people seeing, anyone who's not a superstar signing for over 10 million, but that's kind of the situation now.
Yeah, to give you an idea, I only recently started playing NHL 26, and it is quite a shock compared to the actual NHL, because when you go to the player contract screens for their long-term extension contracts, they are requesting the maximum. So when you look at this, they're taking 12 million, they're taking 10 million, they're taking a 9 million discount. You go to your player, well, I'll give you a 5-year what's the discount for the team? And they go 17.5 million.
Yeah.
I'm up to a season where someone just requested 22.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's not happening. Meanwhile, cut back to the league where they're like, oh, he took 11. How greedy. It's just such a different world. And EA Sports can't compute that the NHL world will not let people take money.
Yeah. It's like, well, it seems
foreign.
logical that they should be getting this amount.
It's
These,
so foreign. Like,
yeah.
it's absolutely foreign to them. It's amazing. Thomas Harley, 8 years, 10.587 with Dallas. Very specific number there too.
Yeah, it's an odd one. I don't know whether there's a specific meaning to the numbers that mean something to him or whatever. But look, I think we're kind of seeing this trend. Obviously, as we kind of go down this list of young players being locked up long term, on the maximum contract for what AAV kind of feels like it makes sense to them. I think it's okay. I don't know that I love Harley in terms of the situation that he is in there. Like the money that he's getting is kind of like top defenseman, top power play, and that's kind of not what role he's been given. Maybe he'll eventually end up in that kind of role, but there's still, like, he is currently is he actually, no, maybe he is on top power play now there still. No, it's currently Heiskanen. Harley's on the second power play as like one of the second, which is a nothing power play for them. I mean, look, he'll probably still grow into that role. It's probably eventually, I imagine, given the money that they're and the contract length, they're expecting that he'll still, that he'll have a big role going forward for the team. It's just he's still kind of easing into that.
I think it's an interesting one from a Dallas perspective, because we've talked about their cap management. And we've talked about how they're going to build moving forward. And especially for me, the interesting bit is next season. It's not so much about this season, but obviously for next season, because they've got a few players coming up, the most notable one of which is, of course, they've got to do the Jason Robertson extension or trade him at the deadline. And I think we're about to find out what Dallas thinks really of Jason Robertson, because I think by the time we get to the deadline, I think we're going to know. If they're currently sitting where they're currently sitting, they might decide it's time. Because remember, there was that rumbling at the end of last season. There was that weird rumbling coming out at the end of last season. They didn't think that he produced enough for what they were paying him.
Well, they basically kind of bridged him on this deal. I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. I'd be shocked if they let him go without some huge return. But I'm not sure who they are without him, to be honest. In terms of
this is the thing. We've also talked a lot about with Dallas, is that, like, Dallas is obviously in flux at the moment. The whole getting rid of DeBoer, which was, again, in my mind, the right call, but one which was reached in a way that was different to the way I would have reached that conclusion. You wait till he does that press conference, throws his goalie under the bus, then fire him, not work out that he's going to throw his goalie under the bus at some point anyway. Like, he was always going to do that. So what they are, and, like, again, remember, they're also getting close to the point where the transition out of the veteran players there, and, for so long now, this has been a team that's really, had a couple of stalwarts on it. They're about to start transitioning out. Right, we're about to sort of see Tyler Sagan's probably not much longer in terms of, he's got 2 years left on his deal currently, but they're probably at a point where if they're going to turn it over before it falls apart, the Sagan one is probably one of those ones, even though it has a no move. I feel like they might try that. And a couple of others. Robertson is in the window where you'd keep him, but it's Dallas.
Yeah, they have a little bit of a change of the guard, still to happen there. It's been gradually happening, but we've still got Jamie Benn and Tyler Sagan on this roster from forever ago.
Completely. Lane Hudson gets his 8 years at 885 in Montreal.
I think that's I'm honestly a little surprised compared, if you compare those two contracts or whatever. Like, I kind of thought he might get more. I actually think that if he'd waited until the end of this year to sign, he probably would have gotten a lot more.
I think Montreal at the moment has the players drinking enough of the Kool-Aid where they're prepared to take the cut, to help the team out. And
well,
that's
notably, this is his first long-term contract, so maybe there's an element of that security.
It's for me. For me, again, I look at this and I just think to myself that they're in that bubble at the moment where they have the capability to sort of sell everybody on the idea. And they can do that quite successfully now. Now, in 3 years' time, will they still be able to sell people on the idea of take a haircut and play in Montreal? Probably not. But they're probably just in that bit now, that little window where they're still not quite there, but they're approaching there, where they can do the whole, hey, you can see where we're going, take the haircut.
Yeah, I do wonder, you know, compare between now and you know another season of Hudson, if he manages to put up a similar, you know, kind of thing. Obviously, he's only got that one kind of rookie season to go off. He could take a step back, which is not uncommon in a sophomore season, and you know it could have gone either way. So I get it from his perspective of like, all right, this is, you know, too much to pass up. This is, you know, $70-something million. I'll just take it and run.
And they've still got cap left. They've still got tons of cap left. Like they've got $5 million projected. Their deadline cap space at the moment is still 24. So like they've got space to play with at the moment. I also like with their active injuries, like it's Patrick Line is listed as out with an abdomen, and I felt like saying it was out with a can't really be bothered, which is kind of it. Now, the last one of these signings,
not like the others.
Carter Hart, 2 years, $2 million with Vegas. Look, if you paid any attention to the trial, no individual involved in that trial, no matter what the finding is, no individual in that trial comes out of that trial looking vaguely like a decent human being.
No.
None of them do. Also, especially given that Carter Hart just signed with a club which features a player who testified against him and who then Carter Hart's lawyer tried to character assassinate. Vegas has, I sent the link to you yesterday. Vegas at the moment has a 2-for-1 cheap ticket deal going for their regular season games. And there are lots of people talking about the fact that, isn't it interesting that you've now got to sort of bribe people almost to come into the arena after you sign Carter Hart? The backlash has been quite severe. Do not let people convince you that it's not. There is a very real backlash among Vegas fans over signing Carter Hart. They didn't want him, right? This is an organization that's trying to find value and thinks they've got value in Carter Hart. The fan base as a whole in Vegas does not want Carter Hart in the building. Like, that is the absolute vibes. I've spoken to a couple of people I know in the US who are Vegas fans who said sort of the vibe among the fan base is they don't want him there. But Vegas is going to Vegas.
I mean, look, we see it again and again in the NHL teams that you know, every year there's some player who's done something abhorrent, whether or not they've served some kind of sentence for it, whether or not they've actually, you know, been be charged for something or whatever. Like, you know, we've seen a whole bunch of examples of players who, by all accounts, like, don't meet the kind of conduct expectations of professional athletes, and we just see teams again and again go, oh, but, you know, it shouldn't be the end of his life, and, you know, we should, you know, we still need to give him money because there's a potential that he makes their team slightly better or whatever. And, you know, those players just end up back in the NHL. You know, cowardly fans, or largely men, will put their hands up and kind of go, oh, well, you know, look, you know, he's just gonna, you know, he's done his time, or he's you know, he wasn't you know, found guilty in a court of law or anything like that, whatever. You know, you're not allowed to be critical of this, and unfortunately that's kind of, they're not the same thing. Like,
things that he basically admitted to in court, were reprehensible, like, regardless of what the final verdict was in the case. And I do implore you, if you really want to take this up, go and look at what happened in the case, go and look at the finding, go and look at the ruling, go and look at the aftermath. The judge is not glowing in his "you did nothing wrong, boys." The judge is very much not of that mind. There are reasons why that ruling went the way it went, but
Sexual assault cases are notoriously like this. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to get a conviction.
The testimony that came out about the players that were involved, and in particular, Carter Hart in particular, came out of it absolutely horrifically. Some of his comments, some of the things that he said, some of the things that he did, and these are things that he had acknowledged that he did, were beyond reprehensible. Do I believe that people have the ability to change and blah, 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 blah? Yes, I do. But they've not done anything to atone, show any contrition. In fact, the first thing they did was try to get themselves immediately readmitted to play hockey again.
Yeah.
Not go and seek help, not go and work with victims' rights groups, not go and do any of the things that you would do if you were genuinely trying to make amends, but rather they viewed it as something that just stopped them from playing hockey. And that's, I think, where the problem sits. So anyway, he's signed for Vegas. I do not want to be in a building when he gets on the ice because something tells me that's going to be horrific. Let's move into the news, and we're going to start on the same vein so we can move past all of this and into some happier stuff.
Yeah.
Former NHLer Ryan Kessler charged with criminal sexual assault of a 16-year-old. I read this article the other day, and oh boy,
it's rough.
Yeah, according to the criminal complaint, both counts allege that Kessler engaged in sexual contact with a 16-year-old child through force or coercion, and had reason to know that the victim was physically helpless. This is made worse, of course, by the fact that he's currently in his third year as the head coach with the Little Caesars AAA Hockey Club, the youth area program in Detroit. This is
So apparently, Little Caesars released a statement that they've removed him from his position, and basically, that what's been kind of he's been charged with was not in relation to his work with them or anything like that, but still, obviously, not someone that you can have in that kind of position. Currently being, notably, obviously, he pled not guilty to that, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's we'll see where all that goes, but not great.
No, it's not great, and Kessler has a checkered, shall we say, reputation within hockey. I'll put it that way. There were a lot of people who you saw who have been inside hockey who, when this came out, sort of went, oof, but also I'm not staggered.
Not shocked. No.
So again, he's had a bit of a reputation there. So not in terms of underage, but just regarded as not necessarily being a nice individual, shall we say. Not beloved in any locker room he was in. Let's put it that way. There are many organizations with many documented bits of history over Ryan Kessler. So look, it'll be interesting. Obviously, again, everything at the moment is in allegedly, again, big alleged blanket over everything because it's currently before the courts, and we'll see what plays out in that investigation. Moving on. Jaromir Jagr is still playing hockey, everybody. He is once again not eligible for the Hall of Fame because the man won't leave the ice.
So he's 53 now, and he's no longer like a majority owner of Kladno, which
so Kladno are just playing him. Like he's not.
Yeah, they're just literally playing him. Like he's still putting up some points. Like obviously he's not dominating the league or anything because he's 53 years old. But
I'd hope not. That'd be an indictment.
I know. But like he's still doing all right. But we saw him last year get like the essentially the retirement treatment in Pittsburgh. He came in, he had his number retired. He had all the photo ops with all of the the old greats and all that kind of stuff. He spent like a bunch of time in Pittsburgh. Basically, like it seemed like everything was lining up for his like official retirement and immediate kind of Hall of Fame entry. And then I guess they called him up and went, "Sorry, buddy, we need you back again. We need you for one more season." And he's like, "All right, well, I'm just going to play again another season." So,
have you looked at his stats?
I think I saw that he
Don't look
put
at
up
them
like
if you haven't.
I
Don't
know
look
I did look at like the article. I think he's had something around 20 points last season or something.
Okay, so last season he played 39 games.
Yeah.
He had 5 goals and 11 assists.
Yeah, there we go.
He had 16 penalty minutes.
Yeah.
And he was a -2. This season he has played 3 games. Any guesses?
Let's go 1 goal, 2 assists.
No goals, no assists, 2 penalty minutes, -2.
I wanted him to be having an amazing season.
I
knew it wasn't likely, but I wanted it in my heart.
While we're talking, I'm going to hit Cladno. I want to know what their stats are for this year. I just want to see who's in their scoring at the moment. Are they playing okay? Do they have players that are doing okay? Where are we? Okay,
it'd be wild. Would it be wild if like Crosby retires before Yaga does?
I think best they wouldn't be wild if Crosby went and became his center on Cladno.
Yeah, well,
which that would be, but that would be
wild. Yes.
Their top scorer this year, Cladno. The most goals that anyone's got is okay, that's interesting. I didn't realize who was playing on this team.
Oh yeah, he's got a couple of like NHL retirees and stuff, right?
There's some NHL retirees and AHL. So like Daniel Audette, who I used to sign in my AHL as a backup all the time, backup player. He is the leading scorer with 7 goals at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Also, where are we? Former Tucson Roadrunner Kelly Klumer, who is again another player who was one of those AHL backups in NHL, is their second highest scorer with 6 goals. Sam Vigneault. There's a bunch of like AHL dudes. Like he was a Cleveland Monster forever. Like there's all these guys who are the AHL and they've all gone over to go and play with. I'm assuming they've gone over because Yaga's gone, hey, want to come play over here?
Yeah,
yeah. Yes, I definitely do. Oscar Danska's in net. Wow. Okay. Cool. Right. Sweet. Former Vegas Golden Knights goalie for like 6 games. Oscar Dansk is currently playing as the starter. I know he's not the starter. No, Adam Brzgala. So go Cladno. And he's Cladno born and bred. Well, he's not Cladno born and bred. He's actually.
I think he had like Plekanec or someone there for a little while too.
Yeah, Plekanec was there. I think last season. I want to say.
Yeah, it was pretty recently. I think
it's quite an it's quite the lineup. Put it that way. Yeah. It's quite the lineup that he's playing with. But no, they're not doing brilliantly, and he's not doing brilliantly. But he's still playing, and look, it keeps him out of trouble. It keeps him away from girlfriends, the youth team players.
Allegedly.
It's important. It's important. No, he hasn't gone with the alleged blanket on that one. He openly admitted that.
No, I'm saying it allegedly keeps him away.
Nothing can stop the Yaga.
No.
All right. Speaking of people who don't ever stop playing, Sidney Crosby, the 9th player in NHL history to record 1,700 career points. Also yesterday, by the way, John Tavares notched up 500 goals.
Yeah. Well, there's been a couple of little notable landmarks recently. So,
yeah, I mean, Sid, he's had a good start to the year. We're going to talk about that.
He just keeps on trucking. Like I think he's still on pace. So far to like have a point per game season in every season that he's played in the NHL so far. Which I don't know what the record for that is, but he's got to have a pretty good shot at it. I
mean, he's had overall, and we'll talk about it in a moment. But the Penguins' start has been quite something.
I mean, look, like a 1038 PDO will do that to you. Like they're not this good, but it's been fun. They're winning. They're in the like. I think that they've just won a game just now, which I think puts them on top of the Metro.
Well, I mean, we'll come to that.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, let's move into.
Oh no, they lose the tiebreaker to New Jersey, but they're tied on points to New Jersey.
Let's move into it. So let's talk about the standings at the moment. We'll start over in the East. What we both got right, and this is going to be in our way too early hot take segment. So the last part of this podcast is all way too early hot takes and just general state of the league. we both predicted correctly that the Atlantic would be a bit shit.
Yeah.
That was the first thing we predicted. The second thing that I had
didn't expect it to be upside down, but
the second thing that I had said was I thought that the Maple Leafs would not be great. And I thought that this might be there. And I've said forever that I don't like Berube, and I think that Berube, like, again, took over a team that was good, that should have been contending for cups, and just got a toxic voice out of the room. And the players, in reality, let's face it, Ryan O'Reilly and Jordan Binnington won that Stanley Cup. They won that Stanley Cup. It wasn't Berube's masterclass of tactics. It was Ryan O'Reilly physically put an entire team on his back and went, this way, everybody. And Binnington just kept everything out for as he can do when he goes on streaks. But Berube having the Leafs anchored firmly to the bottom of the Atlantic. And by the way, they're tied with the Panthers and the Sabres there, all on 11 points. And the Panthers and the Maple Leafs are both -4 in the goal difference stakes too. And the Maple Leafs yesterday went to what should be an easy layup of a game against the Blue Jackets and got absolutely destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. My first of the way too early hot takes is Toronto's terrible and genuinely might be in a bit of trouble here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the tricky thing is, they're basically 500 on the start of the season, and we don't want to read too much into 10 games. There is still, like 90% of the season to go, but they definitely haven't come out of the gate looking good. There's a handful of teams that have had a pretty shaky start to the season, but I don't see anything encouraging about the way that Toronto has looked, or the way that they've started, or the kind of way that they've been playing so far. They certainly don't seem to have made any kind of improvements over previous seasons.
That's the most important part to me. It's not the points. It's not being last. If you watch the Leafs play, they don't look good. They don't look like last night, Berube threw the entirety of the team into the mixer and produced some very weird lines. There was an interesting thing the other day. I haven't listened to a lot of the Dangle podcast in recent times because they've been a bit weird. But I did listen the other day, and they were talking about, it's been quite interesting to note that players who are going up and playing with Matthews at the moment are underperforming. And the second they get put back on Tavares's wing, they're good. And I think that's quite interesting. And I think that possibly has something to do with Tavares, as we know, is very much team first, very team forward. He creates, as someone who has him in fantasy, and has had him in fantasy for years, he creates tons of chances. Matthews, and again, I love Austin Matthews. Everyone knows he's one of my favorite players to watch in the league. No longer my favorite player to watch in the league. We'll come to him later. But Austin Matthews is, if he's on, unplayable. But when Matthews is off, he's completely missing. Like, he's not even a minor factor on the ice. He just disappears. And it's really, he's very streaky like that. If he's on, you can't stop him. But if he's off, you don't notice he's there. And I think that Toronto at the moment, whatever they're doing with their lineup, Matthews not playing very well. Like, I think the way Dangle put it was, I'm in that phase where I'm really hoping he's injured.
Yeah.
Because if he's not injured, what the hell's going on? Because his shooting is way down from what it normally is. He's just not got that dynamic sort of that jump in his step that you see. He's not got that shot has an extra bit of like spark on it. The shots are really poor at the moment. And defensively, the Leafs are terrible. Like, defensively, they are. And they're rotating which one of them is bad. Like, they're all taking it in turns. And when they're being bad, they're pushing the puck right up the center of the ice every time. 3 of the goals yesterday involved a defenseman laying the puck right down the middle of the ice for the Blue Jackets to just pick it up and go, thank you. And the other thing is that the Maple Leafs have given a ton of money to Anthony Stolarz, who shot horror is turning back into Anthony Stolarz. You know, and they're sitting there going, well, Joseph Wall will save the day. I can't remember who it was yesterday. It might have been it was one of the big stats guys was saying the problem with Berube hockey is Berube hockey relies on outscoring your opponent, but they're going to get lots of shots, but your goalie's going to make a ton of saves. And this Toronto team's not built for that.
No, definitely not.
They don't have a goalie that's going to make a ton of saves. Again, where did he win the cup? You know, St. Louis. Why did he win that cup? Jordan Binnington, if he wants to be hot, you're not getting past him. You know, it's problematic. The Atlantic is a hot take of its own, really. I mean, we all predicted that the Canadians and the Red Wings would be 1 and 2, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. I think Detroit's been a kind of surprise. There's been Dylan Larkin, I think, has just been on fire for the first little bit. I'm curious to see how that holds up after that. Once he kind of cools down back to kind of who he usually is, whether or not they can maintain that pace, probably not. But yeah, I mean, like there's been some teams that have been quietly performing pretty well, but I think that a big part of some of the standings is that some of the teams that we expected to see at the top, like above these teams, have been pretty bad and have been losing, to worse teams, and that has, essentially kind of flipped the schedule flipped the results in the first kind of 10 games of the season. Yeah, like Florida, have started terribly. Tampa have started pretty badly. The Rangers obviously been bad.
We'll come back to the Rangers. Just to sort of give you a bit of an explanation for some people out there, and we're not talking them down. You've got to beat who's in front of you. But the Canadians, who are leading the division currently, they lost to Toronto on opening night. Then they've beaten the Red Wings, they've beaten the Blackhawks, they've beaten the Kraken, they've beaten the Preds. They lost to the Rangers. They beat the Sabres, they beat the Flames, who are terrible. They lost to the Oilers, they beat the Canucks, they beat the Kraken. Right, so it's not exactly been a murderer's row start for them.
No.
And the teams that, they lost to the Leafs, who that's always going to be a tight one. They lost to the Oilers, who, if you're trying to contend, you probably want to beat the Oilers, especially since Connor McDavid is not being Connor McDavid. And they lost to the Rangers, how do you lose to the Rangers in this day and age? That's illegal, I believe, in most countries. So they haven't played anybody of note yet, but they are doing well with what's in front of them. So, Habs fans, I salute you, because I know you're going to yell at me, but, the Atlantic's weird. The Metro, your home ground. Now, I've got a bone to pick with you, which is that it's the only time in history I've ever let you talk me out of a prediction. Now, obviously, it's not going to end like this, but my prediction was going to be that the Rangers were going to be second last, and the Penguins were probably going to be on the cusp of the playoffs. And your bit that we talked about, where you really buried the Penguins about 4 miles beneath the surface of the earth, made me rethink and go, what the hell are you talking about? So I made a change on the fly, and I swapped the Rangers and the Penguins around. And first of all, how dare you? Because I should trust in my instincts that the New York Rangers are an atrocious hockey club at the moment.
It's interesting. Look, I think that, obviously both teams got new coaching this season, partially, but obviously because the Rangers got the Penguins' old coach. I'm a little surprised to some degree that they haven't had like a little bit of a bounce from that. Like I think the Penguins have had a bit of a bounce from having a systems change by Dan Muse coming in, and and a bunch of young players, and kind of just having some kind of jump in their game. They're kind of outperforming their actual play so far. Like I think that probably realistically they probably should be a couple of games less in the standings, but it is what it is. They've picked up points. I don't think that they will continue to be a top 3 team in the Metro for the rest of the season. They may end up on the playoff cusp. As I mentioned in our kind of preview, it really depends on when they sell off important players and things like that. But it helps that the rest of the division is also a hot mess. So who knows? But they're certainly not as good as their results are showing so far. The Rangers are an interesting one though, because like I expected them to kind of even back out to being kind of middle ground, and really that hasn't kind of happened so far. They've been pretty abysmal so far,
Right.
and I'm curious how much of this will is kind of reflecting on coaching. Like it's an odd one. I kind of expected that he would have a better start with them than this.
I'm going to go back to my number one complaint about the New York Rangers. Who is going to score goals? Who on that lineup is going to put the puck in the net? I'll give you the answer. They've scored less goals than everybody in the league.
Yeah.
There is not a team in the NHL that has scored less. No team has scored less than the New York Rangers, right? They haven't conceded a mountain of goals. Their actual goals against is really low. They've only conceded 26.
Yeah.
And they've only scored 24. Like, they can't score. And again, it's almost like, as I said in the preseason, if you don't have a center, if you don't have a first-line center, and you don't have a noted goal scorer on your team, what are you doing? Like, the Rangers are built to middle. They are absolutely built to middle. And that's what they're doing so far, is they're middling everywhere, but that means they're not excelling in a single area, and they're just sort of, they exist. But that's not a good state to be in. So I think for the Rangers, it's very depressing at the moment, and I think the fan base. If I'm in the Rangers fan base, and I know again, my brother is in the Rangers fan base, and I've got a couple of friends in the US who I talk to about the Rangers all the time to get their views on how they view the Rangers, and nobody likes this build. Nobody likes the way this team is built. And we've talked about this before, that now you've made the coach move. There's no more bullets left in the chamber. Like the next move is the general manager, and it's Drury's got to go. But part of the issue is Drury's doing what Dolan wants. Like, Drury was brought in to do what this is what he was brought in to do. Right? Build the team this way. That's what he was brought in to do. So what can you do really? Because it feels like the biggest problem with that team owns it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to put all of this on Mike Sullivan. We haven't obviously kind of seen what he is without having Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin down the middle, and having the kind of offensive firepower that and talent that the Penguins have had. But I was pretty disenchanted with his kind of performance as a coach over the last couple of years. I kind of thought that like he kind of lost the room with the Penguins a couple of years back, and probably should have been replaced at that point, as they were kind of lackluster. And we're kind of seeing the Rangers kind of perform in that same kind of lackluster way. I don't know how much of this to put on him. I think that the Rangers were kind of this team already, and we probably should have seen the writing on the wall. But yeah, I'm not sure that he's the dynamic coach to pull them out of it. So I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see what happens with them if they don't kind of pick things up. I'm not sure what he's going to be able to do to make the best out of this roster.
And on this Rangers front, if I said to you 11 games played, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 penalty minutes, is that what you're expecting from a first overall pick? The conversation in New York around Lafreniere has become very loud. And again, the other question mark on that is it the player or is it the development? I mean, the other one, just for the record, is 11 games played, 2 goals, 5 assists. That's Panarin.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to put Lafreniere on the same pedestal as other first overall picks. Like that's not. It was a weak year, but
if you are drafting somebody first, then yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're still going to be you still be disappointed with it for sure. I'm just saying that he's not Conor McDavid, never has been.
So, from the Ranger side of things, obviously, we're now living in a post Mike Sullivan era in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
and apparently Kyle Dubas is a genius. So, talk us through the Dubas genius era. What's it like in the
I mean, look, it is. I think to an extent, kind of once they kind of gave him permission to try and do a bit of kind of retooling and rebuilding and stuff, that so far has been pretty successful. Like they have managed to bring in prospects and young players who have made some kind of an impact. There's still going to be a big drop off, obviously, at the end of the core's time in Pittsburgh. That's unavoidable. But I think that they've actually done a pretty good job of bringing in a few kind of important pieces, and a few of them aren't even up playing with the team at the moment. Sergei Murashov will probably be the Penguins starter next year at some point in time. He's currently tearing up the AHL because they just don't have space for him at the NHL level. They have Ville Koivunen, who just came up due to the Raquel injury, who is also tearing up the AHL. So, they have depth. They have players knocking on the door. They have more young players that they want to put on the roster than they've been able to in years. And that is, something that basically Pittsburgh hasn't had in a decade or more. Very rarely have they, we can kind of count on one hand the players that have come up from their ranks and in their prospect system and made like a big impact, like and a few of them are still around. We're talking about Jake Gensels and stuff like that, but there's a few that played bit parts in cup runs and so forth that were very important and went on to have NHL careers. I don't know whether or not some of these guys who are kind of up doing that now are going to be any more than that, but they kind of seem to have found lightning in a bottle right now and having fun and playing. And so I think that there's a little bit of pressure off for them to some degree, with how they haven't been successful in the last few years. And there's the ability to kind of just like take the chain off and kind of have a bit of fun. But Evgeny Malkin's line has been really good. He's vying for leader in the league in points. He has a line of 3 6'5" guys that are just fucking bullying opponents, and it's fun as hell.
I did notice that Malkin's line in particular has been quite good.
Look, Anthony Mantha and Justin Brazeau. Who would have guessed?
Look, if they can sort of maintain, at the moment, all they really have to do is maintain sort of a middling pace. If they can do that from this point, like I don't know how some of the teams below them, and yes, it's very early, but there are some teams below them who I don't see a way that the Rangers can get better anytime soon. Like, and they can't spend their way out because they're over cap. So I don't see how the Rangers can get better anytime soon. There are teams beneath them that I think they can quite easily, like the Caps are a bit all over the place. They had a very slow start. They've gotten better now, but they've then dropped their last two after starting to look a bit better. There's a very clear pathway here for the Penguins sort of hanging around in that top four.
I think it's possible. I've got to say I'm torn because I was fully expecting to come into this season and bottom out and have a chance at Gavin McKenna, and it doesn't seem like as likely these days for sure. Like I think that it was always going to be a matter of how much they sold off early as to how much they could bottom out. And I think that with this success, it's probably just not really going to happen. They're probably going to end up in the playoff picture partially through just how bad everyone else in their division has been. They might end up third in the Metro just because everyone else below them is worse.
Yeah, they could end up third in the Metro purely off the back of, well, somebody has to be third in the Metro.
Yeah, that's basically how the Capitals got in a couple of years ago.
Now, I read you that stat line. I'm going to read you another stat line here. 10 games played, 6 goals, 10 assists. Is Macklin Celebrini the greatest player of this or any other generation, and why?
He's doing great. I mean, it's so fun. I'm so glad. Yeah, like I'm so glad that he's come into his own as a point per game player for the Sharks.
Last week, Macklin. Oh, to be fair, Elliot Friedman has had the line of the year so far on 32 Thoughts, where he said, "You know what they're all saying around the league right now? Let's hope that San Jose don't work out how to defend." And he goes, because boy, can they score. And last week, you saw that in that first sort of week, you saw the Sharks really just struggling with everything. And they were gradually putting it together and scoring, but obviously we can't hold a lead to save ourselves. By the way, currently, as we record this, the Sharks are 3-0 up in the first on New Jersey. It's been... all of the expected players that would score too. Like Alex Wengberg just got his 800. He's got a goal in his 800th game.
Nice.
So as you'd expect from Alex Wengberg.
I totally forgot that Wengberg was still in the league.
He's been really good. By the way, they with the US government shutdown at the moment, there was a whole thing where Wengberg's partner sort of got him to think about things a bit further on, and he's paying a bunch of all those payments at the moment that aren't being made to support like underprivileged people. Wengberg just made a massive donation and made a big payment towards all of that off the back of, hey, we need to help out. So decent dudes. San Jose's gathering decent dudes and Ryan Reeves. But
there's been some interesting teams like that where you look at their roster and kind of go, oh, that guy's still in the league. That guy's still in the league. Pittsburgh played against St. Louis the other day and there's like 5 guys. I'm like, oh, that's where that guy is.
San Jose is obviously all over the place right now.
Yeah.
But those kids are starting to click. Obviously you've got Macklin Celebrini's leading them up, but Eklund had a brilliant week last week as well. He scored again today, assisting all over the place as well. Michael Misa got his first goal in the league. Will Smith had a great week with assists as well. You've got like Eklund's at the moment, this grizzled veteran at age 23, which tells you what you need to know about the Sharks. But then the Sharks, the supporting cast is Tyler Toffoli, who really should be wearing the C, but they haven't given him the C because I don't think they want to move him on anytime soon. And they want to give the C to Macklin when he's ready. So I don't think that they want to give the C to Tyler Toffoli because I don't think they want to have to take it back. But Wengberg, Barclay Goodrow, Jeff Skinner, the aforementioned Ryan Reeves, Philip Kurashev, who just scored again. Then you've all of these, and then the defense: Dmitry Orlov, Nick Leddy, John Klingberg, Timothy Liljegren. Come on. Vincent Niorio has been amazing.
It's a who's who of players who you would have really wanted on your team 4 or 5 years ago.
But the big problem with the Sharks has been in goal. Askarov has not been great. He's struggling a lot. There's something someone was talking the other day about he drops into the butterfly too early. And so apparently was saying that one of it's a technique thing where he tends to be he's dropping into butterfly too soon and giving people too much of the net. And they're like, if he's got to get that out of his game before it becomes too ingrained. I think after the first game of the season, I think I sent you a message that is like, is this the full Nedeljkovic experience? Where we were absolutely brilliant, and then he was amazing, and then he gave up the soft bouncing goal down the ice, followed by running out in the overtime, running out almost to center ice and missing the puck completely. Our goalies have been absolute trash, so much so that I'm hoping that the long-term IR Carey Price decides that he might want to stand between some pipes for a minute.
I totally forgot that Carey Price is on the books for San Jose. It's wild.
So the remember on the books at the moment, Ryan Ellis, Logan Couture, Ryan Ellis, and Carey Price are all on our books. None of which are playing for the club. It's a great lineup. If you don't take into account that none of them are seeing the ice ever again. But look, the Sharks are fun, which is what we want them to be.
I think that's kind of all you want, really, at this point in time. Like,
But
look, it would be nice for them to, take some steps up the standing. But like, if you're gonna be bad, at least score a bunch of goals and be fun.
Hasso Plattner said in his and I recommend, by the way, for anyone who didn't, go and look up the Hasso Plattner interview before puck drop on opening night. It is an absolutely fascinating. You very rarely get an owner of a hockey club that is that open and that forthright. And Hasso Plattner was amazing in talking about some of the failings of the club, some of the areas where previous regimes had not done what they should have done, questioning some of Doug Wilson's and scouting in the last couple of years and some of those moves, and saying that some of those moves were moves that he trusted in Doug, but he really wasn't a fan of. And that's kind of one of the reasons why they all agreed to move on. Talking about the idea of I'm sick of losing, obviously, but, I like what we've got going. I don't want to be in the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes. Like he made that plan. I don't want to be part of it. He's a great player, but don't want him because I don't want to have to be in that position. Really interesting interview with Hasso Plattner, and that's just after the Sharks announced an extension on SAP to stay in San Jose. So I recommend, even if you're not a Sharks fan, it's just good to see an owner and listen to what an owner has to say when they're being forthright. But Sharks are fun. You know who's not fun right now, however? It's the Edmonton Oilers. And you know who's not having fun right now? It's Connor McDavid. Slow start.
Yeah.
Very slow start.
Yeah.
He's been, by his standards, painfully quiet.
It's interesting. I think, especially after we saw that, extension from him and everything like that, I think, we were kind of maybe expecting a real big hard push for the playoffs or whatever. I think that they kind of do this sometimes, though. I'm not too shocked from the Edmonton perspective. I think they did this last season too, where they were kind of garbage for like the first 2 months of the season, and then all of a sudden they just kind of turned it on and were
They still don't have goaltending.
No, they don't. Yeah, but they never have. So they just find a way.
But like at the start of the season, to give people an idea of how unusual it is, yes, he has 11 assists, but only 3 goals. Only 3 goals from McDavid in 11. So he's going at more than a point a game, but for him, it's 11 assists and 3 goals.
Yeah, it's funny that's quiet for McDavid.
It's not outstanding, and Draisaitl's been 8 goals, 5 assists. So Draisaitl's been scoring, but Edmonton's been struggling to keep the puck out of the net. But they really are not doing a great job at keeping the puck out of the net at the moment. Darnell Nurse is being Darnell Nurse, although I did notice for fantasy purposes that he just helped me by scoring a couple of goals. So thank you, Darnell. But what do you actually, that's an interesting question. What do we make of the start of the Oilers defense? Because Bouchard and Wallman in particular have been a bit bumpy.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is not, a super defensively solid team at the best of times. They just kind of find a way to, collapse and make the most of it and have, themselves bailed out by their offense. I don't know. Look, they'll probably find a system, a structure. Like, probably at the start of the season, a lot of teams are still kind of working out, kind of getting back into that structure of finding a way to weather the storm. They'll probably get there too, but there's never been their strength. There's never been a defensively strong team or a goaltending strong team.
Look, it's been a bit all over the place for the Oilers. I think, though, the interesting bit for me is there are a couple of teams that are underperforming. The Oilers have been one of those, but they traditionally do. I think for me, the most apart from obviously we talked about Toronto before, I think the most underperforming team from what we expected at the start of the season, however, is the Minnesota Wild. They are not looking good. And
no, they just lost 4-1 to Pittsburgh.
Yep, they lost to Pittsburgh. They lost to the Sharks the other day. And, we don't beat people. We score a lot of goals. We don't beat people.
Yeah.
Like they've not been great. Their wins have come largely against, like, they beat the Kings 4-3, which the Kings it depends on what day you happen to get. Outside of that, like, they beat the Jets in a preseason game, and then they sort of just fell apart. They like beat the Blues on opening night, but the Blues aren't great.
No.
And then after that, like, the Mammoth pumped them. You know, the Jets have come back and beaten them. The Penguins, as you said, 4-1. You've just spent a lot of money. What do you do? Like,
yeah. I mean, they've been pretty middling. Like, I watched a bunch of today's game, and they looked okay in spurts, and then they just kind of went away.
It's, again, I think one of the things I think is going to become a theme this year of the season, and it sort of becomes a theme in every season, but I think in particular this season it's going to be a massive theme. Dodgy goaltending. I don't think there's a lot of good goaltending in the league right now. I think we're in a really lightweight. Everyone's got to the point where they've convinced themselves that middling, mediocre goaltending is what you can get by on.
Well, I think that what we've kind of seen is a real kind of power shift between goalies and scoring. Like, we think back in like the last decade, in the kind of start of the time, really kind of the start of the time we're doing the podcast, people were talking about like goaltending is too good. We need to make the nets bigger. We need to, we need to make all these adjustments or whatever, because we're entering this, dead puck era. The goalies have, their techniques have gotten too good. People can't score anymore. And we saw, fucking Jamie Benn won the Art Ross with like 87 points. And then it's kind of totally shifted the other way. Players developed, kind of new techniques. A lot of the stuff that goalies were doing stopped working. It ended a handful of goalies' careers because they just couldn't adapt to the new system. It basically, it killed Matt Murray's career. He wasn't able to laterally go side to side in the way that was required for the way that NHL forwards were now attacking to get over that kind of thing. And we've reached a real kind of renaissance of scoring now, where it used to be good for a defenseman to put up 40 points in a season, and now that's kind of average. And you are now seeing defensemen putting up 70, 80 points and stuff, because the scoring level is just so high right now, and the result of that is that goaltending is low.
It feels like a lot of the younger players that have come into the league are attacking in a way that's a bit more relentless and a bit less static.
Yeah.
And I think that, when you've got, and again, I will use him as the example, but the other day in that Wild game where the Sharks beat the Wild in overtime, and we didn't touch the puck in overtime until we scored. But if you watch that goal, the Sharks are in their defensive zone for about 3.5 minutes, and the Wild is like standing there, and they're moving the puck around, and they're trying to get some movement going, and the Sharks just soak the pressure and soak the pressure and soak the pressure. Then they get the puck, they make a line change and fire it up to Macklin Celebrini, who disappears.
Yeah.
And nobody on the ice can keep up with him. And they are the younger players, everyone used to talk about McDavid's speed. And the younger players that are coming in are faster than that. Like, the game moves on. And you've got really fast young players now who move so quickly, and their hands move so quickly. So you're not getting this static, slow motion, move the puck, lay it out there, lay it back in there. It's got to be bang, 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 hit. Right? And if you don't do that, and if you slow on that movement, defenses will just smother you. So the teams that move that puck fast, goalies can't cope with it, because, again, as you said, it's that side-to-side movement. Matt Murray couldn't go side to side to side to side to side. Get him in. We're waiting on a generation of goalies to come in who can go side to side to side to side to side, which will then change the way the attack has to work back in again. And it goes back to that thing with Askarov. Like, Askarov's technique on most things is really good, but he keeps dropping into butterfly too early. So that's the issue. We'll finish up just quickly with one last sort of view. Is there anyone that is surprising you in a positive way in the West? I think that
in the West,
the Mammoth. I think the Mammoth are the answer to that.
Yeah, look, they're such a strange, kind of team, because we are talking effectively still about the Coyotes in a large part.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, they've been pretty good. I think, some of their players, as we talked about before, Logan Cooley's come on. There's been a handful of players that have, kind of taken that next step. And it's really nice to see them actually kind of legitimately have success for the first time, really, in franchise history. As the Mammoth, at least. It is obviously still their second year, but pretty impressive. I think that they're, I think that it's probably a little bit more exciting than teams that are probably overperforming at the moment, like a Seattle or someone like that, who we kind of know what to expect from.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like Seattle they're not even really overperforming. If you look at Seattle, they're second to the Golden Knights, but like the Pacific is 13, 13, 12, 11, 10, 6.
Yeah, we are talking about, the difference between, 1 or 2 wins being the top of the bottom of the division in most divisions still at the moment.
Exactly. And don't worry about it, Flames fans. We have left you out deliberately. We will come back and talk about you, though, next podcast, because I feel like you'll probably still be down there and you'll be right for talking. But that's going to do us for now, because I'm going to go off and see if the Sharks can manage to hold a lead. Who knows in this day and age? Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, everyone, for, again, any commenting, any sharing. Share it around. Let everyone know we're out there again, and we will catch you all later.
Thanks, everyone.